And after that call, man, I'm on the Zoom and Martin's looking at me and he's like, "Did you sign the client?" Because I'm freaking out in my room and I was so stoked. And I mean, it felt good. Because again, it's like you don't see progress until you do. And then once you see the progress, it becomes easier to move forward from there because now you know you're doing something right. You knew it.
And you joined the team last month. So I just wanted to hop on here and just talk about your experience, what you like about it so far, why you decided to join, how we connected, and, kind of just give your background of, the last month.
Yeah, so I started out, basically working jobs and I didn't know what I wanted. Like typically when it comes to jobs, I don't like what I do. I all I want, I think for everybody's focus is the first reason you have a job is just to make money.
Right.
But when it comes to sales, even for my parents, I've kind of understood that sales is life. Like anything you do is sales. So when kind of understood that, I've found a job and I kind of devoted my time to find a job, something more easier to work from home. And that's when I found you guys. And there were other platforms, but I'm happy I got to sign with you guys. I think the one thing that I expected was obviously I wasn't going to know anything. I was willing to learn and I was ready to learn, but other than that, I didn't have any expectations. I couldn't give you a firm answer on that.
Right.
So when I was going into it, the hardest part was there's there's not a lot of upfront money when like there's no guarantee, aside from working something out with you. A lot of it's like you got to be confident and willing to put in the work first to get your paycheck. And while we're still in the making on that, I think it's more important to understand like what you're doing first because just like some of the calls I've had before, if you don't know what you're selling, then be willing to get yelled at first. And once you understand it, I mean, it's pretty straightforward from there to if the agents are willing to give you some time to talk, and even if not, then continue to talk. Show them your service. I mean, they don't know what they don't need yet until you're willing to talk, and I think that's where it kind of goes in. And uh, I can turn that off if you want me to, but
Okay.
basically, it's a lot. It's going a lot better than I expected, and I think one of the hardest struggles was, not knowing what to come first. But once you have an idea and once you get your feet wet, like I said, it's pretty straightforward from there. So
Yeah. So talk about like the first couple of weeks of, getting onboarded. We didn't jump right onto calls, and you weren't closing and booking a million appointments a week. So just talk about from start up until now what that training looked like, and then getting you to the point where you just booked your first solid appointment last week and over the phone.
well, when we first started, a lot of it was just calling, going over some of the scripts. Um, Even when we weren't calling, I would go through them. I would review some of the calls, and even if it was just a few hours a day, that was enough for me to, like I said, get my feet wet, understand what's to come. But when it came to the calls, I think that was probably the hardest part. I was not afraid of, and this is a lot of people's type of fear is they don't want to hear the word no, which I was the same way. I completely understand. I think the one concern I had when it came to calling was someone going off on me, like just getting pressed when I couldn't do anything about it. And that was my fear. But even then, whether I deserved it or not, it's like one of those things where you're gonna call them at a bad time. Things like that just happen, right? So as much as I want to help and make their day better, I'll do my best to. But at the end of the day, it's also their decision to give you the time to talk, or whether they're just gonna hang up on you. So I think the first week, and I was going over some of the calls. I did about the first week was about like 250 calls, something like that. Because on average, it's about 50 calls a day for a few hours. And first week, all those calls were no. Like you kind of almost expect them to say no. And when you hear no, it's you start to be like, okay, maybe I'll call you later. Then when you hear it more, no just kind of becomes like a that's not an answer. Like you can't tell me no. I'm gonna continue to talk. So you kind of just adapt to the word no and move forward with it. And then into the second or third week of calling, it's like 500 plus calls. And now after every call that you take, you kind of learn something about that call, and then you're preparing for the next call after that. And that's, I think, what makes it a lot easier to, you know, for the client that I signed, just feel confident, whether he hears the word no or whether I hear the word no from him or not. I'm going to continue to talk, tell him how we can help him. And if he's willing to take the chance to just give us that time and help him close more deals, it's like, what else is there? It's a pretty simple understanding. It's just not easy, just like anything.
Yeah, and a lot of people, when we first started opening up positions for like setters and closers and whatnot, a lot of people came through and they're so pressed on the word closer. Like I feel like it's such a buzzword on the internet. Oh, I wanted to go in high ticket sales, but I don't think a lot of people understand what it actually takes to not only build a pipeline, get product knowledge, follow up, because that's most of the game of is just like following up and staying on top of people. Talk about from day one up until last week when you had a really good call with I think his name was Lejean. Like, what was your thoughts after that end of that call that you ultimately had success on?
Man, it was pretty funny because going from that call, it was like I've had positive conversations before, 5+ minutes, anything like that. And I can't, like, it's the funniest thing. I'm not even exaggerating. I forget to breathe when I'm on these calls. And all I do is just want to talk and tell them something about whether it's our service, or whether about it's the real estate market, whatever it is. And I just forget to breathe. So it was so hard. But then when it came to that call, I've kind of noticed I've become a little more confident in, like I said, just being coming to understand our service, understanding the market better. And then you start to talk better. I think the hardest part is these people don't expect your call. They don't know you. So yeah, you kind of have to rely on your voice as well, because it's like, are you coming off too pushy? Are you coming off, tired? Like whatever it is. So that I was, playing around with my voice a lot, just like trying to understand what works, what doesn't, right? And after that call, man, I'm on the Zoom and Martin's looking at me and he's like, "Did you sign a client?" Because I'm freaking out in my room and I was so stoked. And I mean, it felt good. Because again, it's like you don't see progress until you do. And then once you see the progress, it becomes easier to move forward from there, because now you know you're doing something right. You knew everything you were doing wrong because the call didn't go well. Maybe it did, but maybe you didn't sign somebody. And when you sign somebody, you're like, okay, let's review this call. What did I do right? And then you can take those things and move forward. And like I said, this is with anything in life. It's gonna take some time, but yeah. And of course, when I first started calling, like I said, there were so many words that I'd say additionally. Like I said, my voice, anything, bro. And I couldn't breathe. It's the weirdest thing ever, because breathing is just it's not even, you have to think about it. You just do it, right? But when it come to the calls, I couldn't breathe. It was the weirdest thing. So yeah, I mean, you definitely see the progress, especially not even in your professional life. You can take this anywhere with you, like in your personal life or wherever. So I like being able to use that skill anywhere I go. So that's nice about it too.
Right. And you mentioned that your parents were in sales as well. Sometimes before this opportunity and before we partnered together, you would listen in on calls, taking notes. Did you think it was going to be the same when you were actually in the hot seat of making the calls, trying to get people to move forward along their journey and get them to partner with us? Like, what was your thoughts from what you've seen with your parents and actually being in that hot seat?
Yeah. I guess the calls are pretty similar. They don't necessarily cold call, and not all of our calls are cold either. They expect some of the calls. I think when it kind of comes to those type of skill sets, like in sales, if you can learn how to sell a service, you can probably use that and you implement it into products or kind of anything. So yeah, I used to, like I said, listen into their calls, take their notes as well. It wasn't even just these calls. And I still use some of their notes that I took from them to put them into this. So yeah, I mean, it is
Pretty
pretty
similar.
similar, but at the same time, it's just a different, like, it's not going to be the same clients and then obviously, and it's not going to be the same product or service. So yeah, you kind of have to understand those two things a little bit better. But I mean, other than that, yeah, I think a lot of it was pretty straightforward and similar.
Right. Right. And what would you say, just to wrap things up, what would you say for someone looking to get involved in sales, get on the phone, start an agency, get more clients to not only sign with them, but actually get results for them? Whether they're coming from online or want to start their own thing, like based off of your experience, I know it's only been a month so far, but what would your pieces of advice be for someone looking to get started in something like this?
I've tried many things before in the past. So I think it always comes down to just experience when, you know, you you take things, or as long as you take something out of, any type of lesson or experience and, move forward with it, then yeah, I mean, over time, just it comes pretty effective. It kind of just compounds, like investing, where you're not going to know anything. Then over time, it builds up until again you do find something. So I would say just start, honestly. I mean, I wasn't looking to start my own agency, but I knew if I had learned from a mentor or even somebody like you who is working beside me, yeah, it's that would be the definition to me of getting rich quick, would be having somebody to kind of guide you through that type of, path of, don't say this or do this. I wouldn't do that. This is how it worked out for me and it didn't go well. I would not do it. So you don't have to go through those same paths, because if I didn't have you or Martin or anybody to take these calls after I would be done calling, then yeah, it wouldn't be a month. It'd be years, I'm sure. It'd be, or even just additional months. Like, so I would say find someone to help you, um just kind of show you the ropes, get your feet wet a little bit, and then yeah, again, a lot of it's just coming down to starting, because I was taking a big risk too. Like, I quit my job to go all in on this, and there was no guaranteed like type of pay that I would sign on with a client. So it's like, how would I know what I'm doing? Like, I could be 6 months down into this and I maybe wouldn't sign a client. Then what, Like, would I keep going? So I mean, yeah, a lot of it's just, why not swing and miss, or why not swing and potentially hit a home run? So
Right.
I mean, a lot of it's just getting down and going to work, and especially have those type of people around you to influence you to just put your head down. So yeah.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. And let's say, 6 to 12 months down the road, whether it's this or even just your personal life, just for accountability, like where do you see yourself in the next 6 to 12 months, just in life in general?
Yeah. Um, Obviously I see myself sticking around here with signing on a lot more clients. But a lot of it I think just comes down to personal time, what I do throughout my day, because again, your personal life is just as important as your professional life. And I think whether I choose my time in the mornings to invest and then later in the day I call and like whatever it is, I think a lot of it just comes down to managing what I'm doing and is it helping me for the future. So
Yeah, so
yeah,
talk about that a little bit, like your day to day routine with this. And I know you were in investing as well, and you still do that as well. So talk about how you manage that on a day to day basis. What does that look like?
so in the mornings, we're still in training. So in the mornings, few hours from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. We're calling. And then right after that, I mean, I'll get into the stock market and it's not for too long. I mean, couple hours at most. I'll try not to dedicate like my whole day throughout the market just because you don't even need that much time when it comes to day trading and investing. It's pretty simple. And then after I'm done with that, I'll go to the gym. I'll, you know, typically for like 30 minutes to an hour. And there's no set time that I go. It's just kind of whenever I finish up, because maybe after calls or maybe after investing, I finish later or sooner, right? So it's like calls, invest, go to the gym. Then I'll have some books I'm reading. I'll dedicate some time to that. I'll try to meditate. Honestly, I'm not really good with meditating. There's so much going on in my mind that I can't, it's like, it's so hard to clear it out, but I know I can. It just comes down to, you know, am I in a calm, like there's no distractions around me and such. So I'll try to do some personal type, like meditate, read, stretch. Sometimes I'll go for runs, but it's so hot out that I don't even run anymore yet. And I mean, other than that, it's a pretty simple day. Then I just have the rest of my day to myself, which actually I like a lot more because I used to be a morning person, but I wouldn't really wake up that early in the morning. It'd be like 6 or 7. So waking up at 5, like even just an hour beforehand, is so much more beneficial because then I'd finish my day around like 12-ish. And then I have the rest of my day to myself, which typically I'll just use to reflect and then plan for tomorrow. But it's pretty straightforward, honestly.
And for everybody watching, that 5 a.m. is because he's in Arizona time and we're in EST. That's the only reason. So, man, I appreciate your time, especially on this Sunday. Do you have any questions for me that you would like to ask before we wrap this up? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, what's going through your head? Like, am I one of your first? I know you've had clients before, but what?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Even in the month of January, we had probably at least like 20 people come through and go. And that's why even the first week when we were working with you and training you up, it was like the approach needs to be different. Because starting this, I thought everybody was like me and everybody can just lock in and dedicate time and just be dedicated to outdo themselves on a day-to-day basis, right? So when we connected and we started working together, the mindset had to shift a little bit. It had to be like a gradient, gradual slope before we actually got you on the phone. And I look at guys online that have started brokerages where they have very successful people that they're working with, right? And it was a gradient. So the first thing that one of the guys that I look up to online is shadow me for a week. After you shadow me, if you like it, stay. If you don't, then call it a day. Instead of investing so much time and energy into someone who might think that it's just closing and just, okay, I'm going to close. I remember I had this one girl from Miami who applied and she was just looking for warm leads. She didn't really want to build up her pipeline. She said she just graduated university. Obviously, she's feeling herself a little bit, and I understand. And I was telling Martin, I'm like, I think exactly the same way. But at the same time, based off of her responses, I knew she didn't have the experience that she was talking about. And if you're just looking to sign on to a team and just expect for leads to come to you, I mean, I just feel like you're in the wrong game. And I'm sure you can find a situation that aligns with that. But, even if we were to give you hot leads or warm leads, you still have to follow up. You still have to nurture them. You still have to be on top of them, especially after you don't close them on the first shot. So it's more of a mindset thing that I was looking for. And you're killing it. You're showing up every single day for that call block. You're doing your own research on the back end. We're giving you resources and videos to, do your own research and kind of get more equipped with how the flow of these conversations go. So I'm thoroughly impressed. And, we went back and forth. Honestly, we weren't even going to bring people on anymore just because of the influx that we got at the beginning and the disappointment that we had. But me and Martin always say it's always going to come down to us. It's always going to come down whether you're successful or you're not successful. We have to take the blame because we're leading the way. You have your own goals, but it's like this is our vision that we started, and we have to make sure that it's so clear to you that you're not second guessing a lot of the stuff that we're doing, that it's very transparent and the communication is open. So down the road, man, I honestly see this as being, by next year, we're aiming for at least $100,000 a month easily, you know? And the whole purpose, like I mentioned in the beginning, was to document the process from scratch. Everybody obviously wants to highlight the good in their business, but even just on our calls, we're very transparent on the ups and downs that happen. We review these calls. Like, we're not trying to hide anything to make it seem like everything is dandy, because now you're going to have your perception of things of, oh man, like, how come all your calls are good and none of your calls are bad? It's just like, that's just the culture we're trying to build.
It's good that you say that because with social media, a lot of people like they post their success about signing on a client, but they don't see the back end of how many calls you probably took to get to that call. Because, like
Right.
I said, it took me 500 plus calls to even get one client signed.
Right.
Not to say that it's going to take me another 500 just to sign another, but like, and it's not going to be for everybody either. Maybe they sign it before 500 people. Maybe they don't. Maybe they sign it after 1,000 people, right? But they only see the success and it looks attractive, so they want to get in on it. And then even like you were telling me before I signed on, people quit after their fourth call because they hear the word no. And it's like you have to overcome that. I mean, if you're not willing to, then that's the hardest part about it. And that comes with everything. Like I had to learn that through I don't even know how many other different type of side hustle careers that I've tried, but either I didn't find joy in it or I couldn't, I couldn't handle what was going on without, either getting paid or because time is very valuable, right? You don't want to think like you're doing this for nothing.
Right.
So a lot of it just comes down to, again, are you confident in your service? Are you helping people? Because if we weren't helping people, why would I be a part of this team?
Right.
Right? I'd rather just go find another agency or I'd rather go find another job that I can know that I'm helping people because at the end of the day, like it all comes down to just do you feel accomplished with your day? Like, or were you sitting just doing nothing? And yeah,
Right.
so a lot of it comes down to expectations and whether you felt like you did it or not, because yeah, I mean, there's nothing else to it. It's just move forward with it and take it for what it is. So,
No, for sure. And that's a blessed way to wrap things up, man. Once again, I think, I'm looking at continuing with you long term, but I just your mindset, I think you're going to be successful in whatever it is that you do, just off of the discipline, your attention to detail, your willingness to learn. Like, even showing Martin to you the first time, he's like, holy shit. And then now that first call that you got, it's like, okay, now you just tweak a couple things here and there, but man, I don't think your trajectory is ever gonna stop. I think the sky's the limit for you, man.
likewise, brother. I mean, like I said, you guys are a big influence on me. Like I hear and see you guys every day, just working. So it's like it's effective. Like it's just like I see you working and now it makes me want to work. Because what else am I gonna like I said, it's either gonna be sitting down or get up and work. So I enjoy having you guys around and being able to influence me like that too. So because again, it's effective. So I appreciate you.
Yes, yes. All right, man. Appreciate your time. And we'll connect soon, man.